We're gonna kick this off a little bit early tonight, about 2 minutes. Little feedback from the iPad. That'll be fixed momentarily. You can't see me? That could be good. Okay, good evening. Welcome to the March membership meeting of the OCRA Club. It's great for me to be here. I've been here the past 2 meetings, but been doing this from home. So Lori said I can come out tonight, so I figured I would. Yes, Zoom people, can you hear me okay? Thumbs up. They'd be on Zoom there. Anyway, okay. So as we always do, let's do a quick walk around the room here so everybody can introduce themselves. I'll go under the light so Wilson can see me. All right, we'll start over here with Bob.
Thank you, Bruce. Good to see you in person again. W4FK, Bob from Hillsborough, and also representing DFMA. We're having a picnic April 13th. There's a sign-up sheet over there by the box, the yellow box in front of Fred. Just put your information here if you're interested in attending.
I'm D, KU4GC, Hillsborough.
I'm Dave, W4SAR, Efland.
Karen, KG4YJZ, Efland.
Absolutely.
I'm Kent, brand spanking new. It's KQ4PES, and it's 2 weeks old.
All right. Now, I have to say something about Kent, okay? When I introduced myself tonight, he says he's here because he wants to learn things. So I said, well, okay, there's some people out here you could learn things through, but be careful, be careful. You might learn stuff you don't want to know.
Pete Raymond, N4KW.
Steve, KZ1X, I'm the guy that you don't want to learn from.
Jose, Kilo Delta 4, Juliet Whiskey Foxtrot.
Chip, KF4WBK.
Okay, moving along.
Charlie, KD4UCZ, Eflin.
Randy, KF40, Hillsborough.
I'm Mike from Pittsburgh, KQ4PEC. I'm also 2 weeks new technician.
So Mike is really new. I didn't get his membership thing until today, and I printed all the new badges yesterday. So wait a minute, no, I take that back. Mike sent his in. Kent sent his in. I got today, so he didn't get his new badge, but he'll have it for the next meeting. Really? Okay.
I'm Boyd, KO4GJO, Hillsborough.
Wilson, W4BOH, also Hillsborough.
Paul, N2XF, Bunner.
Dan, KR4UB, and I'd like to pass around the current membership list for one reason is a bunch of people paid their dues last year in March, so we've got 17 coming up for renewal. The other thing, some of you have probably heard that Danny Hampton passed away last week. There's an article on the end of this if you want to take a look at it. And unless you are into building repeaters or in that field, it's hard to understand just how much he did for us. So we'll start this with Aurora.
Hi, I'm Aurora, KN4VXP, Hillsborough.
And Aurora has a big day coming up Saturday. We'll talk more about that later.
Paul N0US, Hillsborough. Fred, Kilo November 4.
Bravo Zulu. Fred and I are doing the presentation together tonight. So we did that on purpose. So you know that when the mic goes back and forth, he'll finish my sentences, I finish his.
Mark, KR3AM, Loyal Heights. Oh, wait, not yet. Chapel Hill. Okay.
Lori, N1YXU, and also on Zoom, we have 5 folks. Ken, KO4DHJ, Doug, KA5ETS, Charles, KY4HU, JR, N4JQR, Tim, KC1TWR. If I missed anybody, please nod, shake your head, do something, dance around. Okay, I got everyone.
Okay, excellent. Well, welcome again to the meeting tonight. Okay, let me ask Lori to flip over to the first slide. You want me to announce Saturday, or would you like to talk about Saturday? Okay, Aurora is here, so I'm not going to steal her thunder. We can talk about Saturday. Part of the intro comments.
Hi, folks. For those of you who know and some of you who don't know, Saturday is a build day. We are making handy finder RF sniffers. I believe there's at least one person who originally thought they would come who can't come, so there is an extra one if you didn't sign up but would like to do it. Talk to Wilson about paying him back, and you can have his. And it's going to be here at the Baha'i Center. It's going to start at 1:30. If you're bringing tools and stuff, it'd be helpful if you came between 1 and 1:30 so we can set stuff up. And it should last about 3 hours. And I'm looking forward to it. An RF sniffer? Oh, sorry. So okay. An RF sniffer is, so like if you're, I kind of coordinate this because I'm trying to get people to come to the fox hunts more. And a fox hunt, for those who don't know, is when someone hides a radio transmitter in the woods usually, or sits someplace in an undisclosed location and starts broadcasting on simplex. And then everyone else has to either find that person or find the hidden transmitter. And it's good practice for, like, if you've got an RF leak or someone's doing unauthorized transmissions and you're trying to figure out where they are, or someone's lost in the woods and they have a radio and you're trying to find where they are. It's good practice for all those things. And so if you have a sniffer helps you figure out what direction that signal is coming from by interfering with the signal when you're directly in line with it. So otherwise you're kind of going out trying to do it by ear with like a directional antenna, and it's a lot harder, especially when you get close. So with an RF sniffer, even when you get close, you can still kind of cancel out that signal and figure out what direction it is. So that's why we're doing it. And also because it's fun. And if you want to learn how to solder, if you've never soldered before, or just want to brush up because it's been a while, it's also good practice for that. And and there will be a chance to use your RF sniffer on, hey, this is your announcement. April 13th, there's a DFMA outreach event at Fuse Ford do you want me to make this announcement, or do you want to make this announcement? Oh, okay. Yes. So, like late morning to early afternoon, there will be a hidden radio transmitter somewhere nearby in the park that you can try out your brand new sniffer and see if you can find it. And then probably later in the fall, we'll have a person transmitting from an undisclosed location, date to be determined.
Here we go.
Tim, I just saw your question, and Aurora, he's wondering if you will have a milliwatt Fox at the build to test the builds.
I can bring a Fox, but you can also just use the weather. If we can pick up the weather station from here, which I guess I should check. But yeah, that's usually how I test things, is just with that. But I can also bring a small Fox if people want to test it with that. We can.
Okay, so I had two announcements for opening comments tonight. One was about the club dues, and Dan already talked about that. The other one was about the upcoming Saturday build, and Roy was here to talk about that. So let's move to the presentation now. There are two sections to the presentation. Let me just kind of fall on the sword here, first of all. I believe over the last couple years that I've been the club president, I've done a pretty terrible job at promoting emergency communications in this club. We've talked about it. We've never really done anything. Dan put an area on the database where you could sign up for OXCOM. Okay, but we never really did anything with that. And then after going down to Chatham County a few times and seeing what these guys do down there and how embarrassing it is to see how they do it and how we don't, I talked to Fred and said, hey, why don't you and I get together and we'll put a presentation together and present it to OCRA. And if there's an interest, we can also bring it to DFMA, because this kind of ties in with what Dan and the repeater crew have been doing for a couple of years, which is the Tri-County Repeater Study. Okay, where do you put the repeaters? How do you link the repeaters? What's the primary repeater? What's the backup repeater? So emergency communications needs a way to talk in some cases. Okay, you'll find out in some cases it doesn't need ham radio, but it falls right in line with that. So the two sections we're going to talk about tonight, I'm going to do the first one, which is home and family readiness planning. Fred is going to do the second one, which is emergency communications. Mine is somewhat simple, okay, if you've already done it. If not, it's extremely important. You'll hear more about that, but you always do your home planning, your family planning, your personal planning before you commit to doing anything outside the house that Fred's going to talk about. And Fred will get into a few different types of emergency communications. And our goal at the end of the night is to show you how you can sign up using the database that Dan has put together and modified to go along with the presentation that Fred and I put together, and check a box for which ones you are interested in and want to commit to doing something in. Okay, if you are an individual that does not want to be deployed, that's absolutely fine. There are some types of emergency communication that don't require deployment. If you're an individual that says, I have no interest in any of this, that is also fine. Because when we get done, what we would really like to know is among the 110-ish members that we've got, how many members are interested in emergency communication type A, B, C, D, so then we, the board of directors, can take that information and figure out what we're going to do with it. If we get nobody interested in CERT, well, we probably won't follow through with CERT. But if we get 10 or 20 people interested in CERT that haven't had training, for example, maybe we'll get a hold of Orange County and see if they can do a special training for OCRA. So we want to understand where your interests are. Okay, so that's the goal. What are we going to talk about? How do you tell us what you're interested in? And then we'll come back with some type of a follow-on. Okay, let me get up here so I can see what I'm talking about. Okay, what are the meeting goals for these two topics? Home and family readiness planning. We're not going to do a plan for you. We're going to provide the tools so you can do a plan for you. Some of you may only have 1 or 2 people in the house. Some of you may have a bunch of kids in the house. Sorry if you do, you know, we're empty nesters. It's kind of nice like that. Some of you may have a bunch of kids and a bunch of animals in the house, okay, or wherever you may live, okay? So everybody's plan will have similar components, but they won't be identical. So what we're going to do is provide a list of potential emergency events so you can understand what you might need to be prepared for, and then determine if you want to put something more formal together other than, oh my God, here it is, now what do I do? That's probably not a plan. Okay, so we're going to provide some sources for you to create your respective plans. Now, throughout this presentation, you're going to see some URLs. Yes, we're recording this, but what we're also going to do is when the YouTube video is posted, there's a place on the posting screen, and Lori can correct me because she's the one that's best familiar with that, where we can put all of the URLs such that when you go to the site to view tonight's presentation, the URLs will also be there. So you don't need to get your pen out and start scribbling them down or wonder if you're going to catch them the first time you go through the presentation on YouTube. They will be available for you to click on. And this includes any link that I would have in the home and family readiness and any link that Fred would have in emergency communications. Okay, I've kind of already explained the next one. Determine what level of interest OCRA membership has relative to emergency communication options. Fred will walk you through those options in a little while, as soon as I shut up. Okay, and then based on the distribution, what's the next step? Is it at a club level? Is it at an individual level? So we'll try to get the people that are interested appropriate direction and assistance to move there. Next slide, please. Okay. The big red letters. Always make sure you and your family are safe before responding outside your house. So pretty obvious, but something that everybody needs to consider. Next slide, please. So here's a list of some of the things that we might have in our area that you might want to consider you have a plan for. They're not all going to require different bullets to be prepared for, but you will, if you go through all of them, you can very easily determine what you want to be interested in, what you need to plan for. So power outage, we have those occasionally. Do you have that generator? Fire, is it your house, nearby? What is it? Ice storm, snowstorm. This was a great winter, wasn't it? No snow, no ice, no problem. Windstorm. Yeah, good point. Windstorm. Well, we have a lot of those forecasts, but at least where we are, we've been really lucky. The wind has gone around us. But, you know, that's not to say the next tornado that comes through is going to go around us, or high winds. And we've also been lucky, since we're somewhat inland for the last many years, regarding hurricanes. Flood. Nuclear incident. Well, Chatham County has a reactor down there, and they do regular drills and planning and exercises associated with that. And it's not just Chatham County, it's with the Chatham EOC, and it's government regulated, very regulated. Okay. Personal injury. What do you call an EMT? What do you do? Do you get a Band-Aid out? How big is it? How bad is it? And of course, we just got through this one, a public health event. So this is not necessarily meant to be an all-inclusive list, but it's more of a thought jogger to say, hey, what should I do? What action should I take? What action should myself and my family take based on our specific requirements? Next slide. Okay, as I've already said, plans may be different depending upon the type of event. Some considerations, okay, as you're looking at these various 7, 8, or 9 things. Well, do you shelter in place? Well, even if you shelter in place, you know, well, let's see, do you have food, water, a can opener? What if electricity is off? Do you have a manual can opener? Or you're going to go out in the garage with the hammer and the screwdriver? Then you'll have a personal injury. So plan ahead, okay? Medicine, pet supplies, okay? Generator, well, quite a few of us probably have some type of a generator. Do you have fuel? Okay, where are you going to put it? Where are you going to plug it in? You know, how do you plug it in? Do you hot wire it into the breaker box and just turn off the main, or do you have a cutoff switch and do it the right way so that when utility power comes back on, bad things don't happen? So just because you have a generator, you got to think that through. Batteries, flashlights, batteries for the flashlights, or if they're rechargeable, charged flashlights. Okay, and of course, chargers. So are you going to evacuate? Well, it could be called a bug out bag. It could be called a go kit. A bug out bag is probably more the appropriate terminology because you got to move quickly. Okay, so what are the things you need based on the URLs you're going to see soon and the type of event that's happening that might need to be in your bug out bag? And Fred brought this next item up with one of our revisions, critical documentation. Something that Lori and I put together 2 years ago, at least, maybe. As some of you know, we've got a summer home up in New York. Every time we go there, we take with us a folder that we have in the house that we constantly keep updated. It has all of our insurance policies in it, our marriage license, our wills, our birth certificates, I don't even know what else, but passports. Yeah, it has everything in it, all in individual folders. And when we get the renewal X for the car insurance or the homeowners or the insurance for the place up north or the bulk liability insurance, the updated policy goes in there. Okay, so if we go anywhere, it's only about that thick, grab it, it's red, grab it, and it goes with us. Do we do a good job on everything else? No, but we did a really good job on that, and we keep that up to date. But that's very important, critical documentation. And if you are bugging out and you have a pet, you know, bring the dog along or the cat maybe, or the bird or whatever it is. And if you are evacuating, where are you going? Head north. What's that mean? Where's the storm going? Okay. Are you going to a hotel? Good luck. Everybody else might be. You're going to your aunt and uncles or your sisters? Just have a plan, which goes right in with the next part, communications. So if something's going on and part of your evacuation plan says, well, go to Aunt Bessie's or whatever, okay? Do they know? Have you made plans with them? What do you need to bring there? Do they have provisions? If you just call and say, hey, we got to evacuate, we're on our way. No problem, it's taken care of, okay? So plus, if you are evacuating and you get a call from, you know, our kids are in New York State. So if we've left and they call down here and say, hey, you know, how are you doing? Well, we've got a landline still because our cell phone coverage at our house is lousy. Okay, well, the phone goes to voicemail. Or if we're in a no coverage zone, you know, our cell phones won't pick up. So we have to make sure that we know how to communicate with them and they know how to communicate with us, and same with your families. Emergency gear. Is it warm out? Is it cold out? Do you need boots? We're not having snow and ice, regardless of what you said, Aurora. No snow and ice this year. But are there any kinds of emergency gear that you would need? Okay, and all of this stuff kind of leads to, from a communications perspective, what's your primary method of communication? What's your alternate method for communication? Is it landline? Is it cell phone? Is it internet? Is it, you know, what is it? Is it email? Okay, what contingency plans have you made? Okay, well, your cell phone's dead, you know, charger's not good. Well, you can get out to the car and you can plug it in there because you've got a car charger that you can, you know, what contingency plans have you made? And is there anything else from an emergency perspective? Do you have your HT? Does it work simplex? Or do you have an HF radio that you can use if it's appropriate based on the planning that you've done? So what I have not done here is put a plan together for you, but hopefully it has raised some awareness on things that you might want to consider for yourself. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's look at a potential outage here, an event, a power outage. Okay, the description of the outage is all power for your house is down. That's usually what happens. We had one several weeks ago. All power for our house was down. So the first thing was assessment of risks and impacts. Well, you know, I'm on the you'll see down there the Duke URL. I got a notification, a text message from Duke that said, we've detected a power outage for your location. Yep, lights are out. Okay, good job. Well, before that came, fortunately, we've got a whole house generator. And I purposely do not have it on automatic start, but I went out and flipped a button, switched the transfer switches over, and we didn't even know the power was down. Problem we've got is we don't know when the power comes up, but that's a different story. But, you know, what's the risks and impacts? Do you have health hazard where somebody in your house has to be on some kind of a machine that requires power? Okay, think about this stuff up front, because power may be a simple one. It may be an infrequent one. I mean, we've got all underground cable at our house, all right? Well, underground cable shorted out. That's what happened last time. It was only our neighborhood, 24 houses. That was it. I figured we're going to be down for weeks. We were down for less than 24 hours. Guys did a great job. But that's 24 hours when that emergency oxygen machine that you might have is not going to run. Okay, do you have an alternative power source? Already talked about that. Alerts from the power company. Those are fantastic. You get them when power's down, you get them when power's up. If you do have internet, none of you've ever done this, you can go out to their URL and you can see how broad the outage is. So you can get estimates of when it's going to be repaired for the first 10, 12 hours. Unless it's simple, it usually says evaluating outage, which doesn't help much, but at least you know they know about it. If your communication is down, your phones are down, how'd you get to the internet? Okay, so you got to have the PACE plan there. What's your primary alternate? How do you get to things? Okay, determine the possible duration. Well, do you shelter in place or do you evacuate? A lot of that depends on your personal needs. We shelter in place, turn on the generator, okay? It's big enough to run the air conditioner in the summer. It's big enough to run the heat strips in the winter because it's all electric heat. And it's a 10,000 watt heat strip, so it's a big generator. So we would rarely evacuate for a power outage, but it might be something to consider. So what's in your go kit should you need to evacuate, or what's in your emergency kit if you're going to ride out the power outage? What do you have for flashlights, batteries, cell chargers, other stuff that you might need during a 6, 8, 10-hour outage? Is it summer? Is it winter? You know, what considerations do you have in your Go Kit? Do you have pets? Okay, do you have that new stuff that's really dog food that you keep in the refrigerator? Seen the commercial? Okay, or do you have the canned stuff or bag stuff? Okay, what do you keep for the dog? What kind of considerations do you have? Food options. I got to tell you this one. This is a funny one. Are you able to use your appliances? At home, yeah, we can both get embarrassed here. At home, we have a fully electric house. So we have an electric stove. The only thing that runs off of propane is our generator. So we've got a 500-gallon tank for the generator. That's it. Up in New York, we have a propane stove and a propane furnace. Everything else is electric. So we had a big storm up there, maybe first or second year we owned the place. So it's probably 7, 8 years ago now. We had a big storm, power was down. You know, I was just talking to my granddaughter and said, yeah, we rarely lose power here. And it went right down. So we did not cook yet. So we've had to figure out, well, how are we gonna cook? So we're gonna go out and use the grill. I mean, it's pouring, you know, so you don't want to go outside and use the grill. So we, you know, kind of roughed it. And my nephew, the smart ass that he is, said, Uncle Bruce, you have a gas stove. Your pilot might not work, but just light it with a match. Oh, good point, Kurt. So, you know, fall on the sword again, Bruce. So now if we do have a power outage up there, at least we can cook. Okay, water. We're on a well. So that's one big reason other than heat and air conditioning. When power goes down, we lose our well, we lose septic services, we lose everything. So what are you doing for water? Are you on a well or a public water system? And then, of course, communication capabilities that we talked about on the previous slide. House phone, cell phone, ham radio, something. So this is just probably a partial list of things that you should all think about just for a power outage. Some of these will apply for some of the other events that were on the previous slide, but you know, you should really think about this stuff. And especially if you're going to sign up for something that Fred's going to talk about in a little while, where you think you might want to be deployed to go someplace, even if it's only to go to the EOC for a day or a shift and help out with whatever needs help, you ought to have some kind of a backup plan that you take care of first for those members of your household that aren't going with you. Next slide. Okay, so here's what you don't need to copy down. All right, because we'll make sure we have all of these. Useful links, ReadyNC and ready.gov. So these sites, if you go to those URLs, they are extremely helpful. I got some of this stuff from Virginia. Remember Virginia was here to talk to us about SKYWARN last year. And I called her and talked to her. I said, this is what Fred and I are doing. She said, oh, let me send you some presentations, some links. You know, how are you going to use this? So I explained it to her. You know, so some of this stuff I got from her. So this is excellent backup data if you do want to put together some type of a plan. So there's the ReadyNC and the ready.gov. Gas Buddy, well, you're going to bug out or you're not going to bug out. It might not really matter, but you know, did you listen to the forecast when they said there's going to be 50-mile-an-hour winds and go fill up before that? Or did you say, well, I'll get it tomorrow. It's really not going to be that windy. You know, if it's B and you decide to bug out and you've got an empty tank, Gas Buddy. And one thing you really got to think about when you're trying to find out what stations have gas, configure your search so you go to the gas stations that actually have power. Because if they don't have power, it doesn't matter if they've got gas because they probably can't get it to you anyway. So Gas Buddy is really an important link if you are going to bug out. Okay, Broadcastify. This public service audio streams. What's going on? Where's it going on? You know, it'll keep you up to date on what and where. Next slide, please. Okay, Orange County Disaster and Emergency Preparedness. Great site. It's done from the Orange County EOC. That takes you around all of the standard Orange County links and stuff for the town clerk and et cetera. It takes you right to their disaster preparedness page. And that, get ready for Durham County. Durham County Disaster Planning Guide. Okay, this is a PDF document, so it's just click on that link and it'll download a PDF for you. You haven't got to read through an internet site, but it'll download a PDF and talk about all kinds of things that you may want to consider. And there's those horrible red letters again, okay? A plan, not practice, is just a wish. So if you take the time to put together a plan, regardless of what type of event it may be, and you've got a house full of people, 2 is enough, okay? And both of you are not aware of what things you have considered and where the stuff is and how to, use the plan depending upon the type of event. It's really almost a waste of time if you don't practice it. And this isn't like every night you got to go do it, but you got to run through it a couple times just so everybody in the house is familiar with it, especially if you have kids, because, they could panic. And they don't need to panic if, mom or dad says, hey, we got this handled. Here's our checklist. This is what you've got to do. We've talked about this before. Go get your stuffed animal and your blanket and let's go. Little kids. Okay. Okay, next page. All right, so this is where I shut up and turn the mic over to Fred. And Fred's going to talk to you about emergency communication. Any questions about anything before we roll this over to Fred? Yes.
Hurricane, when Fran came through here in '97, we were out of power for 2 weeks.
Let me get this to you for the folks on Zoom. They can't hear you.
When Fran came through here in 1997, a hurricane, it caught the state by surprise, because hurricanes were never supposed to come this far inland, and they went as far as Greensboro. So this area here, DOT only cleaned the 70. So the people around here had to clean Eflin Cedar Grove Road to get to the highway. So you need a chainsaw, because I had a chainsaw out my driveway to get to the road and then to start clearing the road out of my house. So you cannot rely upon, when this happens, you cannot rely upon any government service because they're crippled.
So I'll hand it back to you, but before I forget this thought, one of the things Fred is going to talk about is CERT. Okay? You're going to find out what those 4 letters mean. Okay? And if that's something that you and or your neighborhood regularly have to do, is you need to be your own first responders for something, you couldn't do anything better than to take the CERT planning and to get a neighborhood organization together to handle stuff like that. We don't have an official CERT group in our development, but we had a tornado go through 2 years ago, I think. Fortunately, it went through the neighborhood and it missed everything except for a bunch of trees that covered up the private roads. Because even if, the town came around, we're all on private roads. So 24 houses, we own the roads, we own the problem. So a few of us went down there with our tractors, other people with chainsaws, somebody with sandwiches, and that was a mini CERT group to get us out of the neighborhood.
And it totally scarred me. Fran scarred me. So even like food, it's funny that we're having this talk today. We rotated our 30-day food supply today with canned goods because you have to rotate it through. This is how scarred we were because of Fran. But anytime I see like weather coming, I have a chainsaw in my outbuilding with gas ready to go to get out. But it's like, if you go through it one time, you're scarred for life. Same thing with generator. I mean, you need a generator. You guys are lucky. I'm on Piedmont. We have power outages probably weekly here. They go down for like, 10 minutes to like an hour or 2.
How many chains do you have for your chainsaw? Do you have a chainsaw sharpener? Man's ready. Man's ready. I hear it, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
And have a lot of beer. Cooler? I'll take it for it.
Well, I have another 28 slides to go, and I'll take questions as we get through, questions for clarification. If there are questions that would require another 1 hour of discussion, I'm asking that we put that on the parking lot. And Aurora has kindly volunteered to keep track of those questions that we need to address in the future, right? Yep. Yeah, that's right. Don't sit in the front row. Give me a slide. So Bruce said we're going to talk about a number of topics, and here they are. And I don't believe in read it to you because you can read. Oxcom, the first one, and that's one that's been tossed around quite a bit and a lot of misunderstanding, but we'll try to clear some of that up. February 28, 2003, President Bush directed Homeland Security to establish the National Incident Management System, NIMS. Why did he do that? 911. What did I do? Walk into the field? I suddenly got a burst. 911. 9/11. First responders couldn't talk to each other. They had different radio systems. They had different frequencies. They hadn't practiced together. So the issue is, how do we prevent that from happening again? So in March of 24, that's a typo. Yeah, no, that's a typo. It's the next year. Yeah. It was March of 04. Make that note there, Bruce.
March of 04.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That the NIMS was established, and there's a common approach then for managing the incidents. And secondly, to train operators so that we could begin to work together and understand a common system, the incident command system, to assist emergency management. And that's when Oxcom was formed as a part of that, as a part of the logistics section of NIMS. Now, you know, we all know the government documents. Well, that's a NIMS plan. Okay. It's really pretty. When I'm walking into the field or something, I'm getting feedback. Closer?
Yeah, that's good.
You. Okay. In May of 05, so in other words, about a year later, the governor declared that NIMS is the standard for all emergency services in North Carolina. Ham radio operators who complete the training are recognized as a part of the statewide emergency response system. You got to know the rules. Are you playing football? Basic skills. You need an amateur license. There are 4 courses, Incident Command System, ICS courses, 100, 200, 700, 800. You need to know how to fill out a few forms. And when I say a few, 3. One is your timesheet, because we get reimbursed by FEMA for the time that we spend on deployment. 2 is the message form, the ICS 213, which is used formally to record messages received. And 3 is just a log, a communications log, ICS 309. So those 3 forms you need to know how to do. The third thing you need is messaging practices. There are pro words that are recommended to make things clear and commonly understood. You know, America is one of those places where English is hardly ever spoken. And we seldom have the same meaning. And that's why we use pro words, because those are commonly understood across all. You need to know how to operate the EOC radios. If you get deployed into the EOC, you're going to use their equipment, not yours. And finally, WinLink. And WinLink has become really the workhorse, and it's one of the real exclusive capabilities of amateur radio. And that's the ability to send email by radio. Well, that sounds kind of trivial until you think about being deployed to a shelter and they need to restock the formulary for 500 people. And you've got to order all of these drugs that nobody can pronounce. And how do you get that done in an accurate way? And so you use the ICS 213 RR and send it by WinLink, and it's all done. Additional training beyond just the basic would be the ICS 300 and 400. The 400 is less important, but the 300 I found was incredibly important. When I took the 100, 200, 700, 800, which are, by the way, all online, all on your personal study, you just log in and complete the training. I thought it was, frankly, a lot of bullshit, a lot of bureaucracy. When I took the 300 course, I realized it's a ballet. It's so well constructed, and one feeds to the next, and how this all works together in an incident. OCC, Jose and I went through OCC training together. When was that? 3 years? 3 years ago? Okay. We're still working on our position task books, but just about done. And there's another document that's important. And that's an IFOG, the National Incident Field Operation Guide. This has the frequencies and the contact information for most emergency services in the country. It's all right here. You got a comment, Jose? Okay, good. And then the other one is specifically for amateurs, which is the OXFOG. And so here again is a ready reference that you can use in an emergency. And then finally, there's another opportunity, and that's in SHARES. SHARES is a system that's managed by the Cyber Infrastructure Security Administration for FEMA, CISA, FEMA. And SHARES is working outside of the ham bands, which means we don't have the same limitations. So we can encrypt, so we can have other kinds of communications that we can't do as amateurs. Say again. It's not legal to encrypt over ham sequence. It is not. Part 97, okay, says that all communications must be clear, unencrypted, plain English, readily understood. So that's a limitation, or is it a benefit? It depends. But SHARES gets around that problem in terms of the information that can be communicated. Please. What you need? Well, you need an HT with dual band, an earpiece, and a microphone. Why do you need that? Ever been in a restaurant sitting beside a guy at the next table that's on the telephone and talking and chatting and carrying on? And it's even better when there's two or more gathered and they're doing that. You can quickly become a nuisance if you don't have a headphone and a microphone. You need to be able to communicate and hear, but it has to be contained. You need to be familiar with other equipment, not only in the EOC or whatever, but we're on a deployment and my radio fails. Does it happen? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So somebody hands me a radio, I need to be able to use it. So it's again, this cross training and interoperability. We use this application called Signal, and it's become really a workhorse for us. And it does allow communication when most other communications are failing. A cell phone, really important. That's oftentimes our primary first go. And then a go kit that's appropriate for the deployment. Or are you going to the EOC for an afternoon training, or are you going for a 12-hour shift? Or are you going to another county? Or are you going to Puerto Rico? It all depends in terms of what needs to be in that go kit. And there's all kinds of advice. Optional radios, HF. You don't always have to have a general or extra to make a contribution. DMR, a lot of discussion around digital, and that's something that's coming stronger. I think across Chatham and Orange. You need ideally, an optional radio would be a mobile, something greater than 25 watts. HF, UHF. Register in terms. Terms is a training, exercise, response management system. And it's just a database that has all your information, including your deployment availability, if you want to deploy it, the training that you complete, and your experience. Now, required depending on the level of personal engagement desired. That's a kind of a convoluted way of saying, what do you want to do? Or what don't you want to do? But if you want to move ahead, then things like the OCRA, which is a 3-day course with a position task book that focuses on operation and messaging skills. There's also COML, communications leader. This is a 5-day course, 5 days in the classroom, and it's a kick-ass course. And again, a position task book. The COMT is the communications unit technician. Boy, you guys in here would be gems as COMTs. And that's how to somehow get that equipment working when it fails across the system. And of course, the shares. We talked enough about that, I think. Was it last meeting, we had the IEEE truck. I think some of you saw it. Very interesting. And then, of course, Lori's put out the link to that presentation, and that's worth taking a look at. But the IEEE is offering short-term communications, computer and power solutions, primarily for emergency shelters worldwide, nationwide, and that are looking at going worldwide. And they oftentimes partner with the Red Cross. They also have a communications outreach and training program in STEM as part of IEEE. And that's the link. And again, this will be available on the follow-up. And more information here, other links, and I'm not going to read it to you, but you're going to find it when you get the notes. CERT, Community Emergency Response Team. Basic skills, and this is emergency preparedness to protect yourself in a disaster, even when emergency services are not available. Wilson, you're in CERT. What do you think? No? Well, when you know.
They're having trouble getting organized. They were training this weekend and I didn't get the emails.
Oh.
CERT is potentially good. It's focused. I'm sorry, did you want me to say something about it? Go right ahead. CERT is potentially good if it happens. It focuses on your neighborhood, but it is wider, and the current setup is to get registered and participate and maybe be called out to help EOC people with things like traffic, other than survival and communication, in other words. And the EOC is opening all their, I don't know about all, many training opportunities like first aid and stuff like that, in which they plan to include CERT if people come out. They had a meeting a while back and there were 20 people there. It's a great place if you live in a subdivision with close neighbors. You could have a really powerful organization to help each other. That's where it started, and it's grown. So it's good if you can do it, and they're taking names.
Yeah, it's a great program, and it is a good way for us to participate. You mentioned various ways that CERT can participate. For example, in Chatham County, the CERT people man the telephones in the EOC to answer the phone calls. It's kind of scut work, right? I mean, you're just like a operator answering the phone and answering the same questions over and over and over. That frees up the professionals to do their job. We make it possible for them to do more because they're not tied up answering the telephones. And we follow the script. The public information officer develops a script, and we follow the script, and we get the information out and control the rumors. Ground truth. And anyone heard that term before? Ground truth. And that means what is really happening where you're at, where you live right now. If you watch on the news or the weather reports, they'll say, well, you know, the radar shows there's rain. We're not sure if it's actually hitting the ground. It may be actually evaporating before it hits the ground. Or twice now I've heard weathermen say, there was a tornado signature on a radar and we don't know if it touched down. Would somebody call in and tell me, do we have a tornado? And where is it and what's going on? And then afterwards, damage assessments. Where does the EOC send people? Where do they send the chainsaws? Where do they send what's needed as emergency, because that's where that tornado went through, or that's where the flooding is occurring. And just to say it again, do not self-deploy. Take care of yourself, take care of your family, take care of your neighbor, and take care right there. Don't go out. It's a great story of a well-intentioned amateur that followed the tornado path, basically up 85. And he was reporting all along the way what he was seeing. It was wonderful stuff. The problem was he was getting in the way of first responders that couldn't get there because he was on the road with his radio. So stay home. Take care of yourself until you're deployed. There is a basic training course, as Wilson was saying. There's a 3-day in-class training. It's everything from operating fire extinguishers and first aid. There's an online course, 317. And once again, 100, 200, 700, and 800 ICS courses. These are common right across. Why? Again, it's about interoperability. It's about our ability to work together. It's about when I show up in an deployment, I understand what you're telling me. So it's really fundamental. There may be a background check required for some duties in CERT, depending upon how you're deployed. If you're approved, you need a CERT vest. I think they're $12.95. It's just a green vest with reflective tape. But it does point out that you are a CERT member. In Chatham, we also have red vests for the OXCOM group. Now, the reason we wear that is because then if you're in a deployment or in an area, people know where to go to find somebody with a radio that can get the information out. So it's just about being visible. With CERT, you need the personal protection equipment that's appropriate for the task. For example, you need gloves and masks, maybe more, depending upon what it is you're setting out to do. Take care of yourself. And again, a go kit. Maybe it's lunch. Maybe it's the meds that you need. Maybe it's some water. SKYWARN and the TarHeel Network. Decision makers want that ground truth to help guide their decision making. Again, the National Weather Service has the radar, but they don't have that knowledge of what's actually happening. And so examples here of ground truth will be coming in through SKYWARN and TarHeel Emergency Network. You need to be a licensed amateur. There are periodically SKYWARN training available to make you available, to educate you on how to report what you're seeing in terms of what kind of cloud formation, how big is the hail, how much rain was there, how strong was the wind, those kinds of things. And then there's a registration in the National Weather Service database for SKYWARN. You need a dual band radio capable of reaching the EOC in Raleigh. Those are the frequencies there, the primary. And then the TarHeel Network. Jose, you're a TarHeel Network coordinator, I think, as I remember.
So every night they have a net. It's about 6:45 leave in the evening, 7:30. So they're always practical nets that you guys can participate. Number one, most of the issues is if you don't ever train how to deal with traffic, that's an easy way to listen to the net and understand the traffic network and how the messages have been handled. They got words groups, they got different formats, and that's the easy way to listen, to start getting used to the way of we communicate when it's an emergency situation. So go to those nets, just listen. Just listen, and understand how the process go, how to help, how to use as a relay. That's one thing a lot of people don't understand, that any traffic net, including the TarHeel, the Marine, in 14.300, I monitor that every day, 24/7. They're always looking for the person they're willing to step up as a relay station. A relay station is as important as an active net controller. Without any relay stations, somebody that listens, somebody that wanted help, we can never get the messages across. So please listen to those net and start listening to understand the process so you can eventually help out.
I'm going to fire my proofreader. I have another error here. The frequency is 3923. You did, yeah, that's small print, but thank you. Thanks, Steve. If you have optional equipment, if you have if you have weather instruments, that's also handy. But, to report actually how fast is the wind, for example. Public support, emergency communications. Those don't look like emergencies to me. Unless there is an emergency. Unless there's a pickup truck that gets out of control in a parade and runs over a girl in front of him at the Christmas parade in Raleigh. Unless there's a fast mover coming the other way down the street. Our role is our eyes and ears to be there and to give emergency responders accurate information as rapidly as possible so they can deal with emergencies. Now, normally these would be blue sky days. It's a great day to be out, but it's also an incredibly important function when there's a problem. Want to give me another? You need familiarity with communications equipment that's used, messaging practices. This is one thing that we're still working on, and that's one of the deployments that Bob and Dan were on with me last August. And our emergency manager said, "Get off the air. Get off the air. You're plugging it up with too much chatter. I need to know what's going on, fast, accurate, and get off the air so we can get the next message. We can get as much message and much traffic through as possible." Map reading. As silly as that sounds, if you're deployed and you need to be going to a particular place, you need to know how to read the map to get there. And then finally is the briefing from the authority having jurisdiction, because each incident will be a little different and each will have their own requirements and what they expect from us. You need an HT radio, and again with a microphone and a earpiece and spare batteries. You need a dual band to communicate with a repeater, cell phone. And if you're deployed with CERT, for example, these are not amateur radio operators, but they may well have an FRS or a GMRS radio. You can buy those at Walmart for $50 for a pair. If we have an FRS, GMRS radio, we can communicate with CERT. And oh, by the way, we can relay that back to Raleigh or to the OC or whoever needs to know. And so that is basically a way of expanding our eyes and ears. Day pack and ideas for what to put in a day pack. OCRA, Net Control, and DFMA. I'll get it right yet. I better stop talking. I think this is where Bruce comes back. Do you have any questions for me? Please, let's talk after the meeting. Oh, Jose, go ahead, please.
Hang on. I'm sorry. Forgot about the mic. One of the live events that happen, especially when you're talking about emergency communication, helping with OXCOM, helping with the community. Back in August, during the Hurricane Adalia or Adalia, however, it was pronounced like 3 different ways during the briefings. So I was en route to Charlotte for a communication exercise, the statewide communication exercise. And I got called by Virginia, said you need to divert, turn around, and you need to go to Center Branch. They need somebody there because they only have one COMEL trainee that he need help. And we need somebody there. I said, okay, I always carry everything with me, so I decided to go. When I got there to Center Branch, I realized they're still under the Civil Air Patrol old building in Burlington, but they're moving half of the stuff out, so they only have limited equipment. So everything else had to be brought by all the fire chief with the radio cache and everything else. And the radios the Center Branch had, the antenna didn't work, it wasn't connected, so I had to eventually, you had to become familiar real quick with the equipment you have in front of you. You had to sometimes climb towers right there on the spot to define what is wrong with the antennas. So at the end of the day, I had to bring my equipment in so I can have HF and everything else, because everything that was there wasn't available for a real mission. That was during the hurricane. So that's why you have to become familiar and understanding what is your liabilities, what is your strength, what is your weaknesses. And that for me was a good self-exercise for me to understand how much I need to still learn, how much I need to educate myself, and how much I can help educating those team members that was at that time. Because remember, you got National Guard, you got different fire department people working that never worked together before. So when you get to the real situation, throw the pride away. You need to learn how to work together within seconds and define and decide what equipment you need so you can become 100% operational within minutes. We don't talk about hours, we talk about minutes. And that's what happened there. So I had to get everybody together, start grabbing people. I need this, I need that, and we made it happen.
Yeah, it's for real. Bob, you remember that day. Dan, we had an exercise or we had a deployment on Jordan Lake with the jump in the lake. Yeah. And you want to make a comment?
I just want to add one comment. When you take the 100, 200 courses and you talk about the documentation and forms, it seems academic. You go to one of these exercises and you start putting your hand out, give me the forms. You really learn quickly how well they help you. Who do I talk to? What's their position? Everything about whatever's going on, so you don't feel like you're lost. So they're your friend.
Obviously plenty more to talk about, but let's hand it on back to Bruce.
Thank you, Fred. And hopefully what you learned from Fred's very detailed talk, and it needed to be detailed, was when you get to a second part after the net control, we're going to ask you folks, show you how to fill out the selection. And now you have a pretty good idea, and you can go back and watch this presentation online when we get it up on YouTube. And the corrections won't be in the presentation, but they will be part of the, because we can't edit the slide when it's recorded, but we will add corrections so you'll see that what they are. But anyway, let's do the last one here. OCRA DFMA net control. I took some literary license here, Bob, and I threw in DFMA because I know one of your net control people is leaving and one of our net control people is leaving. And coincidentally, it's the same person that's leaving. Okay. And for DFMA, I believe it's once every 5 weeks, maybe, or something like that. Mark is the net control. Don't you rotate it once a month? Okay, once a month, unless it's a five Wednesday month or. Okay, well, for OCRA, we would love to have that rotation once a month or every 5 weeks. But let's see, we've got another guy on the line here, Doug, K5ETS. So, and Randy is out here. Randy does net control. And we've got a couple others. Aurora's done net control. Bob has done net control. Yeah, Boyd has done it, I think, once or twice. So we've got a few people that have done net control on the Saturday OCRA net. We would love to get some more volunteers. If you have checked in, it's not hard. There's a script that you go by. You can read the script. The hardest part is making sure your pen or pencil, pen has ink, pencil has Aurora. Yeah, I was going to say Aurora did it too. She has to go upstairs in her house actually to make sure she hits the repeater unless she's got a different antenna. Right. Just the hardest part is just making sure you've got an implement to write down the calls. So, and that's not a very difficult thing to do because the current net controls are conditioning people to say their calls slower. And they will, instead of saying N1LN, they will go November 1, Lima, November. So if you can hear that, November 1, Lima, November, you can probably write that down. Okay. So if a script is available, follow the steps in the script. The only requirement really is document and distribute the information after the net. Who are the check-ins? What's their name and call sign? And if there are any specific facts, I mean, I have never checked into the DFMA net, but I know for the OCRA Saturday net, sometimes we have announcements. Whoever is net control includes a little blurb about what the announcements were, okay? And then that particular net synopsis, okay, the minutes of the net gets sent out to Groups IO. So everybody that's on the OCRA DFMA Groups IO can see what those minutes from the net were and who checked in. So we have 4 nets. I believe we only have 4 nets. We have the Saturday OCRA net, the Monday 10-meter net. I'm net control there, and I've only done it for 17 years. When I'm not here, Dan fills in. So when Lori and I are up north, and we're usually gone for 3 or 4 or 5 Mondays, maybe more, during the summer, so it'd be great if we had somebody else that can fill in for the Monday night 10-meter net. After 17 years, you'd think I'd know how to do it, or you'd think I could find someone else to help. Okay, the Wednesday 6-meter net, there's only a couple of you that do that, I think, as a routine. Wait a minute, let me get over there. Take me a little minute here.
As far as net control?
Yeah.
Generally, and forever, it's been Bob K4VO, but he's had to take leave a couple times, and I've done it then. And the Thursday night net is actually a VHF net. That's the 145.45.
I made another error. Okay, that's 4. At least it's an even number. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. What skills and training do you need? Well, depending upon the net, you would need to make sure you have where did that come from? There we go. So you need to have the appropriate license for the band, frequency, and mode used. Well, if I'm not mistaken, every single one of these nets is on UHF, VHF, or 10 meters, which means technician class only. So I don't want to hear, well, I don't have an extra class. I haven't got my general, technician class only. You can be net control for any one of these 4 nets. Let's see, can you connect to the internet? probably. So ability to download the OCRA Oxcom script from ncocra.org website. The URL is on the bottom of the page. And it's been modified a couple times by Doug and I think Mark, and they've made some changes and updates to it, but you really need to just read through it and probably figure out where you want to copy the call signs and the names of the people that are checking in, whether on that script or on a separate piece of paper. Very easy. Maybe some of the other nets have scripts. I don't have one for 10 meters. I don't believe they do for the other two nets. Okay, so there is a script for the DFMA VHF net, but not for 6 meters. One thing the 6 meter net does though, is they always have a topic to talk about. I see that in the notes that come out. What was the topic tonight? So we talked about that. And they always also have this caboose thing. Whoever the last check-in was gets to be the caboose. Okay, again, ability to copy the calls of the check-ins. Now, look at that note there. Some of you are going to say, well, I can't copy that fast. So you're the one in control. If you're net control, you can very easily say, I didn't get any of that. But I did copy somebody that said 1L. Give me, whoever was 1L, please come back to me slower. And then I will come back embarrassed, of course, but you shouldn't be because you're net control because I made the mistake. All right, N1LN. Okay, thank you. Next, so taking more check-ins. So you don't need to be able to hear 3 or 4 people at the same time and copy them all. Okay, if you get a couple of letters, just ask for clarification. Tell people to slow down. So you should not be intimidated if you can't get it right the first time. Nobody does. Okay, I mean, I'm a contester. You know, if I make errors on the call signs, I get penalized, okay, points. And the more, more errors I get or busted calls, the lower my contest score is. So I make darn sure, if it's a sideband contest, I ask them to repeat it. And sideband contests are damn difficult because you get people all over the world. And, a few of them may have an accent. Lori has a comment.
Just one quick one. You can actually cheat on this. So what you could do is you could go in and the frequencies have already been given. Check into the net or listen to the net. Get a script printed in front of you and write down the calls. It will do 2 things. It will help you learn people around the club so that you'll know the call signs. And if you are the net control, it's not the first time you've heard it. I've done this. I cheated. That's the way I got, better at it. So you don't have to go in cold. You can actually get a little bit of a head start.
Dan cheats. Dan has a comment.
If you do a regular net, this is only doing the DFMA net on Thursday nights, once a month, I play a game. As people start talking, I start writing out. First of all, same people tend to check in. You recognize their voices. As soon as I recognize the voice, I start writing their call sign down. There's another way I cheat, and I can make this available to any of you who want it, or I can put it on the OCRA website. Everybody who's in a member of OCRA, and many of the people if in DFMA who are not members, I will put their name and call sign in that database. And since I do the website, I've got my own special form where it lists everybody in suffix order. If you'd like to have that up in front of you, if there's any interest, I'll make it available on the website. You want to know who normally checks in a week, who is SFO, scroll down. Oh, that's so-and-so. It's there. If you want it, I'll make it available.
All right, so now while we're telling all the truths here, those of you that had checked into the Monday night net, the regulars I know, I can do the same thing. I can hear their voice, but I just want to make sure I get the call. Okay. Sam, I sometimes get the last couple letters of yours. I know it's you, but I'll go back and say, okay, who is that VW, whatever again, please? Because there was a double. I'm just controlling the pace. Okay. But I know it's you. But where I cheat is I have a list in front of me. Everybody that has ever checked into the Monday night 10-meter net, all in suffix order. I do it in Excel, okay? So I can easily sort it, all right? And I think there's like 95 call signs right now of people that have checked in to the 10-meter net. We usually get between 15 and 20, 22 each week. So there's some folks there that I probably talked to once, but if they check into the net, I know their name. Hey, how you doing, so-and-so? And, you know, I like to do that because I don't want to say, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. You should check in more often. Randy's got a comment.
I've done all these things, and actually every week, even when I'm not net control, I still will write down the calls as I hear them, just practicing that. And I also have my little list to the side too, so I cheat.
I write it down too.
Okay, so you found out that everybody that is net control has their little secrets on how they do it. They're all cheater. Fred's cheating too. Fred wants to be part of the cheating group. Hold on a minute.
I want to be on the other side of the argument, and that is that when you check in, say it slowly and clearly.
Yes,
Please. Say it slowly and clearly. You don't get, you know, do yourself a favor. Second thing is key the mic, net control, release the button. Listen. Key the mic, KN4 QBZ, over. It's a way of avoiding the pileups. Okay, listen. And that then takes a lot of the traffic away.
Okay, so now that we have removed everybody's concerns and worries about being net control, we expect during the Saturday net this week, when who's net control this week? You or Doug or you? Okay, when Mark is net control and he's trying to, this is his last time, by the way, because he's moving away. Maybe it's his last time. Okay. So he's going to be looking for net controls for the rest of March, probably. And he's going to, okay, so he's going to be looking for April, May, and June. Okay. Everybody's going that checks in this week is going to say, oh, I can take June 12th. Well, I don't even know if that's a Saturday, but okay. So give it a try. You know, there, you don't get demerits, you get gold stars. So give it a try. Okay. Next page. Okay, what do you need for equipment? Well, this one's kind of important. You know, you need to make sure you have a radio that works on the band that the net's on. Okay, that's kind of obvious, but it also would be good if you have a radio that can get into the repeater that you want to be net control for, and that's more than just kerchunk it. Okay, you have to have sufficient audio so that everybody can hear you when you're talking. Hearing them is easy because if they get into the repeater, then, you know, you can probably hear them. But that's something very easy to do. Just get on the repeater and say, is anybody around for a test, please? And somebody will probably always come back and you can find out, yep, I'm able to get in. Nope, I've got to run 5 watts instead of 1 watt on this HT I've got downstairs hooked into this 1-inch antenna. Okay, yeah, so you need to have the equipment necessary to get into the repeater. 10 meters is a little different. You know, you probably have to have a reasonably decent outside antenna. You don't need to run a kilowatt. You know, I've never run more than 100 watts. Dan has his hand up in the air. Just how much I can walk tonight.
And I will say for the 10-meter net and the Saturday morning net, you don't even need a radio. If you got a computer, join us on Zoom and I can patch you over to actually check into the net and talk over the net and hear the net. It's also cheating, but it works.
But you can't be net control necessarily. Yeah, it's been done, but you need to make sure that Dan is home, because if Dan is not home, he has a Zoom up. He could be at a meeting in Chatham, and we still get together on Zoom. Can't necessarily patch you in when he's not home, but we still get together on Zoom.
Hello.
There you go. Okay, so that pretty much takes care of the radios. Next slide. Okay, now here's the homework, okay? I got homework. Well, it's not too hard. And instead of saying, just go out to the OCRA website, find your profile, and then change this. No, I'm going to walk you through this. Did everybody get a meeting invitation from Dan today for tonight's meeting? Does everybody, what came to you on email? Did you look at your email today? Okay, if you got an email from Dan, Or if you get something that says, join us on the Saturday net, join us on the 10-meter net. At the bottom of those announcements, not the ones from me, the ones from Dan. If the email comes out from Orange County Radio Amateurs, North Carolina, OCRA at ncokra.org, just move down the page until you see what's in that square. That's what mine looks like, okay? Yours will be the same, except the name and the call sign will be different. Dues payment, membership record update link for Bruce, N1LN. Click on that link. And then you will automatically go to another page, all right? Move down that page, and in the page, we have updated this part of the database. And if you, those on Zoom, hopefully you can see this, and those in the room, Lori is running the cursor around it. You can see that there's net control, public service special events, SKYWARN, CERT, Move Truck, and OXCOM. They're kind of in order of level of difficulty, excuse me, the easiest to the most difficult, okay? What we are going to ask you to do is go to that link, fill in, click the box of what you are interested in. And that's not just, gee, I'd like to get some more information, okay? Well, that may be okay. Sorry, losing my voice. But you heard what Fred said about OXCOM. It's not a walk in the park, okay? There's a lot of training you have to have, definite skill sets, familiarity. It's not significantly difficult, but you have to have a level of commitment. Much more, here comes my water. In my refrigerator. Oh, you mean the wife, okay. You have one at home somewhere. Okay, so what we're saying though is, are you really and honestly up to committing for what the requirements are for this particular box that you're going to check? All right, we don't want everybody in the room saying, yep, I want to be OXCOM trained and ready, and I'm ready to deploy, I've got a go kit, unless you do. I am very interested in OXCOM, but I'm not interested in OXCOM from the standpoint of deploying. Would I go to the EOC and provide support? Well, maybe. I'd like to think I would, but I want to make sure things at home are correct first. And if there's something going at home, I don't want to put myself out there for Steve, okay, who's going to say, Bruce, you know, you said you'd come down here, the North Carolina. You know, I'm not going to commit on this and say, I'm ready to go to the Chatham EOC. So Steve Newton's going to call me up and say, Bruce, you said you could be here. We need you in an hour. I was just kidding, Steve. I can't do that. Trust. Very important that there's a level of trust between the person that you're willing to support and you, the individual that says you're willing to support. I mean, that's mine, okay? Net control, SKYWARN, and CERT, okay? Public service, maybe, okay, it depends, but you know, that's a maybe, depends where it is, what I'm gonna be doing. But net control, I can do from home. SKYWARN, I can do from home. CERT, some stuff I can do from home, but it's our neighborhood. Okay, so I'm not going too far, and that's kind of in the take care of your own first. All right, so that's kind of what we're looking for from everybody. Just click those boxes, okay, whichever ones, and it's okay not to have any clicked. You don't have to say, yes, I want to do something. We want to know what we're really interested in. And then the difficult part, you go all the way down to the bottom of the page, and you say, click here to save your changes. You're done then. So when you see an email that has that link on it that was on the previous page, click the link, make sure your dues are paid while you're there, okay? If they're not, stop at the top of the page and pay your dues, then move down the page, fill out those boxes, and save it. Now, we'd like to have that done by Sunday, March 24th. What's the magic of that day? Well, that gives me Tuesday, Dan and I, Monday, March 25th, to try to pull this stuff together, because Tuesday is our board of directors meeting. Okay, March 26th is our board of directors meeting. And we would really like to have some kind of an idea what the makeup of the club is relative to the individuals and where their interests would be within those boxes. And it's not hard to do. I redid mine today because I forgot to tell Dan to put SKYWARN on it. So Dan went in and redid it today. I changed the presentation. I didn't correct any of Fred's stuff. I corrected mine. Sorry, Fred. Okay, so I resubmitted mine today and I updated. It took me 5 seconds. Any questions? He is killing my knee.
To test out these fields, has been there forever, a place where you can just generally express your amateur radio interest. To test this field, there were 38 people that had checked in their interest some of these words like CERT or whatever. I went ahead and updated those particular entries to reflect what you said you were interested in. But if that's wrong, please change it. That was sort of just a test that the database was working right because it generates a report that the board can see. So if you find something there checked for you and you really don't want to do it, uncheck it.
Thanks, Dan. So, one of the things we might do with this is, if we have people that are OCSCOM interested or CERT interested, like I said before, okay, well, then and only then will I consider having a conversation with Orange County. Because if we don't have anybody that's really interested in OCSCOM, okay, or anybody that's interested in CERT, I really don't think Orange County cares if they're net control for the 10-meter net. All right, so I don't want to waste their time until we find out what kind of interest we have across the club. And I don't think that's being ridiculous or asking too much. So I'm trying to fix what I consider a failure on my part over the last 2 years by having you folks check a few boxes, hit save, and then we can try to address that. Any questions? Okay.
Why should you get involved in any of this? We have repeaters. They don't come free. They're getting more and more expensive to keep them on the air, let alone find a tower that has an antenna high enough to where the repeaters really work. The only way we can keep those repeaters on the air is if we're supporting the emergency operations groups to the point to where we are willing to help them to a level, and they in turn are helping us, in some cases, putting up brand new antennas on our towers. If we don't do something, there's no reason for them to do anything for them. So take it personal. Do you like having repeaters in the area? If you do, we need enough people helping the EOCs when they need help, or they will go off the air.
A quick sample, I just want to ask the group. Let's take a sample of the Franklin County Club. They started small, they became active. As a small group that they are, they were able to write a grant, and the EM authorized the grant. Now they got a new repeater, DMR repeater, and all the equipment that they provided because everybody was interested.
Good point, because I forgot to mention that. When we volunteer for the EOC, our hours are tracked. We give them to the EOC. That qualifies for us for FEMA grant money, real money. And again, that's the only way we're going to keep the repeaters we enjoy on the air.
Maybe you're wondering why I'm here. I live in Pittsburgh. That's south of here, right? It's about reciprocity and about cooperation. Our OCSCOM group cannot own any equipment. Okay, by charter, we don't own any equipment. The repeaters are owned by OCRA. Now, Chatham County has the towers where OCRA has installed those repeaters. Okay, that's how it works, folks. So it's about reciprocity. It's about working together. It's about getting to know each other. And it's about having some commonality of our training and our abilities. Thanks.
I've always used this as a joke to anyone to ask, why are the Orange County repeaters in Chatham County? Guess what? The 442150 repeater is actually in Chatham County, right across the border.
Okay, not moving anymore. Okay, thank you. So we've got about 3 or 4 minutes of 9. Okay, we're scheduled to shut down here at 9. Are there any quick questions that we may be able to answer? You Chip, and I would run the mic back there. I'll just repeat your question.
Was a wind-driven fire event. If you think you are in the crosshairs of a wind-driven fire event, run. Do not pass go, do not collect $200, run. There was a Marshall fire in Boulder County in Colorado. These people, sometimes they have to leave their pets. Run.
So Chip's comment was about one thing we left off was a wind-driven fire event. And I think you can see one recently in North Texas, how many million acres plus that they have had up there, and just, or move to California for a while. Okay, that state burns down every year. But that's true. That's very serious, and that's something you should pay attention to. Excellent, thank you. Any other questions here before we wrap it up, since it's 9 o'clock? Okay, Steve has some stuff on the back table that he has equipment for sale, all been tested, all very reasonable prices. In fact, he was talking to me on one of the UHF radios today, and it sounded great. So take a walk past Steve's table, and on your way out, please put your badges back on the badge table, so they'll be here next time you come. And other than that, Kent, I'll have your badge for you next meeting. Thanks for coming. Thank you all, and have a safe trip home.